Okay, now, sometimes introducing a speaker is, fairly dry. Sometimes it can be absolutely boring. Sometimes it's quite surprising. And tonight, I think it's quite surprising. Now, you think you might know somebody, but you don't really until you see their bio, because things come up in that bio that, you just didn't know about. So I'm going to start with what I think most of us know about Jeff. Jeff and Judy own and run the Living Waters Spa. And it's a spa that really has had wild acclaim. I don't know how you got much better than being listed as one of the top 10 clothing optional resorts in California? No. The US? No. In the world. Now, you already know also that Jeff was elected to the Mission Springs Water District Board of Directors in 2009. 1909? Oh, sure. And he is running for office again. He's also served on the Public Safety Commission. He's president of the Historical Society and webmaster. Of course, I always kind of wondered where all this technical ability came from until I found out on his bio tonight that he spent 15 years in the computer field. Is this feedback? Okay, I guess I just hear. Can you hear? Oh, okay. 15 years in the computer field, with senior positions at Toshiba American Computer Systems Division. Now, there's a whole paragraph on it, and I don't even understand the words, so I'm going to skip that. But here's the thing. Well, I should say, too, that he's been on the Palm Springs Airport Commission representing Desert Hot Springs. And in 2006, he and his wife, Judy, were Desert Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce Business Persons of the Year. Okay, pretty good so far, right?
Yeah.
But here's what surprised me. Jeff also has a master's degree in theology from Fuller Theological Seminary and a combined 17 years as senior pastor in 4 non-denominational community churches. Wow. I also didn't know that he's certified by the state of California to teach in private, post-secondary, and vocational education. And the items that he could teach are business administration management, sales distribution and marketing operations, ethics, and massage therapy. So, to combine all those in one class, maybe. Anyway, we're happy to have him tonight. And Jeff, it's your turn now to wow us.
And of course, you may at any time get more brownies or sugar to keep yourself awake during the presentation. I'm very honored, my wife and I are very honored to be here in Desert Hot Springs. Next month actually is our 10th anniversary owning Living Waters Spa, and we have had well over 8,000 people come through our doors, largest congregation I've ever had, and it's just been fantastic. This presentation comes from a passion of mine of research. And when we moved to the desert, I asked myself lots of questions, and the result of some of the things you're going to hear tonight and see. I've entitled it The Hidden Waters of Desert Hot Springs, Tunnels, Aquifers, and the Birth of a City. So, Hidden Waters of Desert Hot Springs. I could tell you about Chuckwalla Bill's Stone House and Hidden Spring. Who knew about those, right? Right up Long Canyon, not but 9 miles up. I could tell you about the Cloverleaf Water Park. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Over on Edom Hill. Now, Furby, you're going to know everything.
What you get for being old.
And for being here for a long time. I can tell you about the Cloverleaf Water Park, and it's over there off Edom Hill, and Right up in this neck of the woods here is where the current road goes to the transfer station for Desert Valley Disposal. I could also tell you about the various spas that are no longer here. For instance, this one here is called Highland Hot Springs up on Hacienda at Mountain View, and it no longer exists. Or I could tell you about the first nudist resort in our town. It was called the Desert Garden. And yes, they're on a hill over there on the west side of 62, and that's Desert Hot Springs in the background from the 60s. I could also say that that became a famous place called the Nude Bowl for skaters, because after the nudists left, they abandoned the property, and the skateboarders found it in the 80s and dug out the pool, and they had fun times up there, and you can go on YouTube and see actually videos of the place. So each one of these are fascinating bits of hidden water and history, and it deserves their own soup supper, but I'm not going to talk about those tonight. The hidden waters of Desert Hot Springs. I have 4 W's. Ron will appreciate that. Where's the water? What is with these dirt roads into the hills? When you've got water, you can build a city, and what happens in the desert stays in the desert. Now hang on to that. So where's the water? Well, water in the desert equals life in the desert. That we all know. Tragically, every year, someone dies out of Joshua Tree or trying to climb up to the tram station. They run out of water. Sometimes they pass away within hours. Without water, you die. I mean, the most you can go is maybe a week. Most of the time is 3 or 4 days. Well, the early homesteaders here in our area, especially this side of the wash, as we call it, this side of the freeway, the first one was Hilda Gray, who back in 1909 homesteaded in an area that was nothing more than a mud puddle with a bunch of palms, called 2 bunch palms. But the man that we know, who really did a lot of work, was Cabot Yerxa. And in 1913, he was homesteading in this area, and he had to walk to Garnet to get water. And that was a round trip he would make, and you can go to Cabot's museum and learn the full story about Cabot. He did, however, build his eagle's nest in the side of a hill. And in 1914 or 15, he dug for water. And he hit both the hot and cold water aquifers. Now, can you imagine that? First of all, you're marching and walking to get water at Garnet, and then all of a sudden you decide to dig a hand well. And there's lots of stories behind the hot water. As he was digging, the water got so hot he was standing in buckets of water just to continue digging. Well, then he decided to go over 100, or I think about 600 feet or yards, something to that effect, and he had cold water. And so he named the location Miracle Hill because he discovered both the hot and cold water. And then here's the map of how this is all laid out. Here we are, the heart of Desert Hot Springs. We're somewhere up in this neck of the woods right here. This line right here is the northernmost branch of the San Andreas earthquake fault. Yep, the big guy, the one that everybody's afraid of. But it's what creates for us the hot water. So water coming off of what would be the Little San Bernardinos, aka Joshua Tree, and way up over in this neck of the woods, San Gorgonio, hits this impenetrable barrier, goes deep into the earth, and it is then heated by the depths of the earth and comes up. And so if you are north and east of the San Andreas, northern branch of the San Andreas Fault, you got hot water. My personal well at Living Water Spa, which is right about here, the well was dug in 1960. They hit water at 80 feet, that's all. When I took over, we now have, the water table has risen, and my water, I hit water at 70 feet, and the water comes out of Mother Earth at 105 degrees, constantly, all the time, never failing. And then if you're on the other side of the earthquake fault, over here, this is the Mission Creek subbasin, this is the Desert Hot Springs subbasin. Our award-winning drinking water comes from here. And Mission Springs Water District has wells scattered throughout the area that we use for our amazing drinking water. So a little bit of history about Cabot. In 1918, he enlisted in the Army. He then left the Army in 1919, and you know, I don't know why only a year. So that would be something to research, you know, another story. He settled in Fertilla, California. There he opened a grocery store and was postmaster until 24. In 25, he returned to Europe to travel and study art for 1 year. Then he returns to the States and he settled in Moore Park, California to operate a grocery store until he finally came back out here in 1937. Meanwhile, now hang on to that. We just left Cabot in Moore Park. Meanwhile, what's with these dirt roads into the hills? If you've driven along Dillon Road and you've looked at some of these dirt roads that go up into the mountains, that was the question I asked when we moved into our town 10 years ago. Well, what are they? They are the Aqueduct construction roads made by the Metropolitan Water District. And what's that all about? I'm going to give you an overview of the aqueduct that I find absolutely fascinating. Originally it was conceived by William Mulholland, who of course brought water to LA from the Owens Valley. And after that they realized they still needed more water, and it was designed by their chief engineer, Weymouth, during the 1920s. It was the largest public works project in Southern California during the Great Depression. Now let that little sentence sink in. The largest public works project. And in my research, I read that it possibly could have been, in one concentrated area in the whole nation, the largest in that sense of concentration. The project employed over 35,000 people over an 8-year period, and as many as 10,000 at one time. The system, over 242 miles, is composed of 2 reservoirs, 5 pumping stations, 63 miles of canals, and 92 miles of tunnels. Now we're heading towards what I want to talk about, tunnels. And 84 miles of buried conduit and siphons. Check it out. The average annual throughput is 1,200,000 acre-foot, or just shy of 400 billion gallons. Huge. In 1924, the first steps were taken to create the Metropolitan Water District, or MWD, made up of various cities, and it was finalized in 28. They considered 8 routes for the aqueduct, and in 1931, the board of directors chose the Parker route, which would require the building of Parker Dam. The Parker route was chosen because it was seen as the safest and most economical, and a $220 million bond was approved by the voters in 1931. Now let me tell you, elections and getting people to vote for taxing themselves is a huge endeavor. And they put forth public safety, public concerns, they had videos, they played things before movies, and on the day of election, they actually put a vote for the water bond in every bottle, or with every bottle of milk that was delivered to the homes in Southern California. That money would translate between $11 and $34 billion in today's money. Now, you might have heard of the California water bond that was floated about. It never made it to the ballot, which was, I think, was 12 billion. So when we think of those staggering numbers, it can be done. And so here was their marketing. If you look carefully on this old picture, the water district consisted of that time, the Metropolitan Water District of Anaheim, Buena Park, Burbank, Compton, Los Angeles, Pasadena, Long Beach, Glendale, and San Diego, and these were in Torrance and, I don't know, I can't read it, Santa Ana. And so they would have this display for people to see. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this big tunnel in the middle of nowhere and bring water to you. And here's the plotting the course. Way up here, and I'm going to zoom in, but I'll give you just the big picture for a second. Here's Parker Dam. It leaves Parker Dam, it goes along the aqueduct tunnels that are buried in the ground, and then it goes up some lifts, through some tunnels, down, 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 and finally through our tunnel area, up in here, all the way ending up to Lake Mathews. Who knows where Lake Mathews is? Yeah. And it's that Lake Mathews, by the way, is closed to the public, has always been closed to the public. All it is a reservoir to take the water. Now what's down here? I know it's, I'm going to give you a close-up picture, but I just want you to see the whole picture here. This is elevation where they had to pump water up, go through mountains, pump water up. And this was done all before GPSs and satellites. This was done by guys and gals that had slide rules and engineers that were absolutely off the chart intelligent. So here was a blow up. Here is the Parker Dam area where it comes through, and perhaps you've seen off of I-10, you could see the Eagle Mountain tunnels off in the distance. And then here's the end again, Lake Mathews, where the water comes in, and then from that point on, it feeds outward. In my research, I also discovered that when they got the whole plan together, and they got all the people to sign up for the bond, they still didn't have any cities that were going to buy the water. I kid you not. They were visionaries, predicting a need, solving the problem before anybody even felt it. Quite amazing. And then here's the middle section blown up with the Coachella tunnels, which we're going to zoom into. A few more details. First of all, in order to build an aqueduct, or to build tunnels that run through our mountains right here, they had to create a support infrastructure of water and electricity that would enable the building of the aqueduct. Okay, this is 1930. There were, MSWD didn't exist, CDWD didn't exist, EWA didn't exist. Private wells were the only thing they had. And they had to build roads. That's why in some of the old maps you can see roads are called aqueduct roads. And they had to build, and they had to provide electricity. This was all in precursor to building the tunnels. In 33, the work began near Thousand Palms, and it actually was, well, I'll show you. In 34 to 38, the United States started building the Parker Dam. My point is, a lot of stuff happens concurrently, all at the same time. And the construction of the aqueduct was finally finished in 37. Now think about it. They went 242 miles in that span of time. They can't even build an overpass on I-10. You know what I'm saying, Scott?
Yes, I do.
I said that Scott sat on our CVAG's transportation board. And the water first flowed on the aqueduct on January 7th of 39. All right. Now, here's my beloved Coachella Valley tunnels that got me started on this whole, what in the world are the dirt roads? 1933 to 37, 33 miles of tunnels were built in our valley. There were 8 construction camps. Yellow Camp, Fargo Camp, Purdue Camp, Pushawalla Camp, Thousand Palms Camp, Wide Canyon, Long Canyon, and Morongo Canyon. And those of you who have been in the area for a while, you know that all these different camps are at the mouths of canyons along the hills here. And here's what it looks like, a real close-up of that one map. What would this would be? The westernmost, this would be what? Morongo Camp. The big Morongo Camp. Long Canyon Camp. And we could back our way down through all 8 of them. Purdue Camp was one of MSWD's division headquarters. I have fun exploring the ruins of these camps. I found out that Purdue was, as a division headquarters, had sleeping quarters for the men and women, mostly men. They had a commissary for buying things, they had a mess hall to feed you, and a hospital with the technology of the day, which actually had air conditioning and heat, x-ray and operating rooms, surgeons and nurses, and medical care coverage. It wasn't quite Obamacare, but it was $5 a day. Or 5 cents a day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, you're on top of it. I'm trying to rush because I don't want you to be bored and you're hanging. So, are you doing okay out there? Yeah. Okay, all right. Just making sure. Here's a picture of the men at the mess camp at Purdue. Isn't this amazing? 1933 is when they started. The Depression was still there. Men and women would do anything for work. Up to 10,000 men and women were working at one time, according to the data that I have, and over 35,000 did help and work on it. Here's what Purdue Camp looked like. If you've ever had, who has been up Purdue Canyon? Raise your hand. Were you there, John? Yeah. Okay.
He was there before the camp was.
Indeed. That's why it said JF was here. Okay, just a few of you who have been to Purdue. What you do, if you ever want to try it, you go down Dillon Road. And then you keep going down Dillon, and it's going to make this right turn. And right at the turn is the road going northward up to Purdue. It's paved up to a certain point, and then from that point on, you should have either a little motorcycle or good walking feet. But this whole area here, what you're looking at is this road that what continues to wind up through the canyon, which you could go through all the way to Joshua Tree, even now. This is a train track that's running in here, as they had to carry out the ore, and then this is a regular road going up to the various buildings. I wish I had more pictures of this than just these. I have scoured the web, I've looked at books, but here's what it looked like in 1966. You can see there was just walls left. And then they say this one here was the foundation of a 4-man dormitory. By the way, this came from the Desert magazine. And here's what it looks like now. You go up there now, and I'm looking southward, and all you have are these slabs where the houses and the hospitals existed. And of course, there's, wonderful bullet holes from the target shooters and graffiti from guys hanging out there. It's quite a place, though. I kind of get sentimental, honestly, when I go to places like this, and I think of the men and women who labored 24/7 for like 4 or 5 years to build these tunnels. And then here's Fargo Camp. Here's the dirt road. You can go up to Fargo Camp, and you see this here, this discoloration of the mountain. This is not the mountain. This is the takeout of the rubble, the tailings, yes, whatever you want to call it, from the tunnel. And then as you go further up that road, up the back, you continue up this road, and you go this way past all that rubble, and you come into, the road comes this way, and I turned around and I looked, and here's where another road went up the hill. And all this infrastructure just to put a tunnel in. And then you will find these ruins of concrete. And in my research and discovery, they would build their own concrete machines there. They didn't have the concrete trucks come up, dump yard after yard. They built their own concrete manufacturing plant on site at each one of the camps here in the Coachella Valley. Here's Long Canyon. This is the one that's closest to us as it is now. And then you can see here is one of the siphons on this side and one of the siphons on that side. Looking back down the hill, you can see here's the trailings, and it's a massive amount of earth that was pulled out. And then here's more of the concrete ruins from the various on-site manufacturing plants to build the aqueduct tunnel. Here's the tunnel itself. It was 16 feet wide by 16 feet tall, and it was shaped like a horseshoe. And the machinery that they had to drill this out and to blast it out, they would lay down tracks like you see right here, and the train or the machinery would go in, they would drill their holes, you know, fire in the hole, boom, it would blow up, and then they would pull out all the rubble on the same tracks. And as they got further, this one doesn't show it, but there was also some tunnels, I'm sorry, at a certain point they had two tracks going, one for the in and one for the out. And then here's the tunnel with rib steel support. And so here you can see the lines splitting off and going off into the distance. All done by hand.
You can't do that.
Isn't that amazing? It's unbelievable.
It was the Depression.
It was the Depression, and people worked for pennies a day, or hour, I should say. And then today, here's what Long Canyon looks like up close. One day, I was going up there doing a little exploring, and I saw a bunch of machinery. And they had pulled off the cover, this cover here. So I walk up to the Metropolitan Water guys, and I said, hey, what are you doing? He said, every now and then, we have to scour the tunnel to get all the buildup of minerals. And by doing that, we increase the throughput of the water through the tunnels. And so this big yellow thing was an air, to push the air down the tunnel. And they had these big machines that would be like a big robot that would go down in the tunnel and just grind away at the surface, knocking off all the buildup of minerals. It was absolutely amazing. It was fortunate for me to be there at the right time. Now, meanwhile, we had the discovery of the water. We had then building of some tunnels for aqueduct water that ultimately gets water to LA, and then we get benefit to it as well. When you got water, you can build a city. In 1932, meanwhile, Coffee is, you know, he's in Moore Park, and Cabot is in Moore Park, and he meets a guy by the name of L.W. Coffee. And Cabot tells Coffee about the wonderful hot mineral water, and so Coffee says, hey, I'm a developer. I think we can build a town focused on health. So Cabot introduces Coffee to a fellow by the name of W.G. Anderson, and Coffee comes to the desert to meet him. In 1932, now think of the timing, the aqueduct is being built. There's all kinds of hubbub, but it's not here directly in our town, but it's in the hills. And for the next 3 or 4 weeks, Anderson helps him vision what would happen here if we did a city. Coffee returns to LA to set up a trust whose beneficiaries are the various owners in the area that would become Desert Hot Springs. Now, what does that mean? When the area was homesteaded, the 40 acres, I believe, they would get, well, there's multiple owners. And so Coffee says, hey, everybody, if we join together, we could create something really big and really good. So he attempts to do that. In 1933, he drills for water. He leases a small rig, hiring Earl Howard. He drills from May till June, and the well temperature was 140 degrees, and he sold his first 14 one-acre lots. L.W. Coffee. In 1933, he built his original bathhouse. Now, this is not to be confused with his first spa. The bathhouse literally was just a couple of bathtubs that he pumped the water into. And as I quote here in his little book, we then installed an electric light plant operated with an old Studebaker engine which supplied lights for the bathhouse and the adobe. This plant furnished us with about 12 lights, which was hardly enough. And then he adds, butane gas range and begins serving meals, and he applies for a beer and wine license, which he then says is not hard to get at the time. And weekend crowds often sleep in their cars because there's no room. Now think about it, 1933. So there's stuff happening out here, but we're still in the Depression. Coffee spa, foundation of the first spa was laid in January of 41, opened for business in July. Those guys didn't waste any time building. They didn't have to go through environmental impacts. They didn't have to do the biology research for the French-tailed lizard. They didn't care about the desert tortoise.
Milk-fed tweed.
You know, they didn't.
Okay.
But I want to put another frame to timing. World War II, typically thought to have started in 39 and it ended in 45. And of course, we all know Pearl Harbor Day in December of 41. Keep this in mind, because all this is happening concurrently with the development of the aqueduct, the development of the town. There's things happening all around, and the recession's coming to an end, hopefully. But in 47, a fire destroys the first coffees, and in 48, didn't waste any time, it was rebuilt bigger and better, and then in 91, it was torn down.
By the city.
By the city. And you say, why? Well, I'll show you some pictures in a second. Why was it torn down? Nobody wanted it. The Historical Society didn't exist as it does today, and you'll see in a second. Here's the first part, pre-fire coffees. This is a beautiful structure. Look at that, gorgeous. Just absolutely amazing. A wooden structure that, of course, caught fire. Here's the rebuilt coffees. When he rebuilt it, he used concrete. And it was our historian, John Hunt, who made a comment I read that when we tried to tear down coffees, it fought us every step of the way. It was reinforced concrete. It was built not to ever burn or not to ever fall down.
Where was that?
8th and Palm. When you leave tonight and you go down Palm Drive and you hit that there's a stop sign there at 8th on the right side, give a little salute as you look to the west. That's what the coffee is. It's an empty lot. Now we got to find or found the town. We've already found it. We just found it. Oh, we got it. LW Coffee. The town was founded by him July 12th of 41. Now, I think that date was picked by our historian John Hunt and others after him because that's when the bathhouse opened up. In 1944, now remember, we're in the throes now of the war, the post office begins on Pearson with a guy by the name of Chester Bowman. No relation, but just a great name. Coffee put up the money, look at this, to provide the furnishings of the office lights, water, heat, and post office boxes, and transporting the mail for a period of 3 years because the government couldn't do it. He did it. And then finally, due to the growth of the town, on September 5th of 46, a year full ahead of schedule, the post office funding was taken over by the U.S. Postal Service. Here's a couple of really cool archives. Dear friend Coffee, to you goes the privilege and honor of receiving the very first money order. Serial number 1, issued by Desert Hot Springs Post Office, established on this day, September 5th, 44. We hope that the post office, which you have worked so hard to secure and establish for Desert Hot Springs, and your achievement will assist in all your endeavors and expectations in this village you are justly proud of. Again, the heartfelt to you and Mrs. Coffee, the Bowmans. And here's the money order. In 48, a water company was formed that later became Mission Springs Water District. A First Methodist Church was built, which is still here in town, right over there on Pearson. And Coffee made a prediction that by 1960, we would be 30,000 people. He was off just by about 4 decades.
Yeah.
5 decades. So from 49 to 70, the Spa City develops. Now check out this little ad here. For $29.50 per month, you can have a motel lot. And you can build your own hot water spa. And so, from post-World War II until the 70s, Desert Hot Springs experienced a dramatic period of growth, especially the spas. Coffee started marketing the spa properties complete with hot water wells. And matter of fact, my hot water well was dug in 1960. They knew that they found they had the water, and then of course, a couple of them, like my wife and I, bought it and named it the Kismet Lodge because they loved the Broadway play Kismet. And Kismet's a Turkish word that means good fate. And you drive on Mountain View Road, my neon sign is on right now, and it says Kismet Lodge underneath the Living Water Spa. Like we're kind of history nuts, sentimental about keeping things. And at that time, by the 70s, there were over 120 lodging facilities in this town. Now, may I say that again? Over 120 lodging facilities in this town. And the city incorporated in 1963. Here, friends, are the names of all the spas that ever existed in this town in that era. Are we done yet? No, we're not. When you drive through our town, any little apartment complex that you see that looks like it was built in the 50s or 60s was a lodging facility to serve the spas, or the coffee spa. Coffee had no rooms in his spa. So all the ones around it did not have any, they often didn't have pools because they provided the housing for people to go to coffees. Well, what did coffees look like inside? Thanks to the movie 3 Women by Robert Altman, he filmed that movie in and around Desert Hot Springs. And our own current historian, Ron Gilbert, extracted some really cool pictures. It had Sissy Spacek and what's the other girl's name right off him? Shelley Duvall as 2 of the 3 women. So check it out. Look at how industrial it was. And watch these people, because the next still, they walk down a little further, right there. And notice the kind of pool. It had this little ledge that the water would often splash over it and take the surface off. They called it a scum ledge, but what can you think? And then there they are walking a little further. And then this was inside their individual area rooms where people could have the water and get treatments and soak in the water. Very industrial, very 1950s hospital-esque. Not the scented candles and soft music that we often find in our spas today. And that was probably why it went down, because it didn't keep up with the times. Wait a minute.
Look at that.
John Ferdinand. There's your drugstore, John.
Yeah, it's back.
Indeed. Let's clap. John likes to say he was the first drug dealer in Desert Hot Springs. And this is a still from the movie. This was shot, this is grabbed right off of the 3 Women movie. And who is that guy? That's Aquaman himself. Before he was Aquaman. I call him that because our health and wellness center, the pool, is named after him. Okay, let's kind of come down and kind of put an end to things. Well, last point. What happens in the desert stays in the desert. What am I talking about? The hidden water we should be afraid of. Septic waste water. Okay, now stay with me on this a little bit. If you are a homeowner and you have a septic tank and your septic tank is working fine, you don't want to be charged for sewers. That's was the mentality of this town for many years. But we've learned a lot. Septic tanks typically take the waste from your home, put it in a nice big old tank outside your house where there's separations and bio things happen inside, and the little bio buggers that chew up things and liquid comes out. Those are high-tech terms there. My general manager, you know, I have to talk so he understands these terms. Well, water comes out, and then in a proper system, it's distributed either to a seepage pit or lines. And here's the ideal situation. Your house, septic tank, the drain fields, percolation, and purification takes place before it hits the groundwater. That's ideal. There's nothing wrong with septic tanks. But what happens if you have saturation? The effect of concentrated housing on the groundwater is tremendous. And as our town was laid out by coffee, it was narrow, little, tiny, not meant to be full-time residences, but mostly your winter cottages. And septic tanks were put in. Well, now we're all full-timers here. And so we have a potential of this saturation situation. So the septic effluent percolates to the water table because it gets saturated and it no longer can purify the water, and that's the danger that we don't want to have happen. Now, because our water district cares, in 1996 they commissioned a study, and the study determined that wastewater discharge from the individual septic system poses a significant threat to the public groundwater resources found within the greater Desert Hot Springs area, and recommended the abatement of these wastewater disposal systems. So the district said, all right, we want a little more data, and so Webb Associates in June of '97 gave us this very powerful statement. There is substantial concern that continued reliance on individual septic systems may seriously impact the future of the local water supply and the local economy. The presently operated well system does not evidence human fecal coliform or nitrate concentration in excess of maximum contaminant levels for these parameters. However, evidence of contamination of local groundwater resource from septic system seepage has been detected in one district well, and of course that's been abandoned. As it says, several wells were abandoned in the 70s as a result of excessive chloroform, bacterial and nitrate levels, attributed to the contamination by septic tank seepage. You know that there was district boards that tried to get sewers in this town, and the whole boards were recalled by the constituents of the town because they lacked, the town's people lacked. My septic is working, why should I pay money for sewers? Well, the district got this data, and thanks to the district staff, they went out and we surveyed the people, and we now, through the efforts going back a decade, have 60% of our town on sewers. And this is commendable to our district. We educated, we taught, we showed, here's the need. And of course, nowadays, most people understand that this is, 2013, not 1913, and we need to protect the groundwater. And it should be noted, since you may have been watching and listening in the radio and the news, they've been talking about chromium-6 and the current discussion of making the levels more stringent for us. If the state makes the chromium levels more stringent, we, water districts, have to comply. There's no question we have to do what they mandate to us. But for many of us, this is very hypothetical. We need more science. We want safe groundwater, and we have it. Chromium-6 is naturally occurring out here, and people have lived here forever. We do not have any issues or concentrated pockets of cancer or anything like that. But I'm just saying, this is critical and very hypothetical right now. But the need for sewers is very real, as noted in the scientific reports. And so sewers protect us from the hidden water we really don't want. So friends, things to ponder. What can you take away tonight? Water equals life. I know that you know this, but do we really, really have a sense of, secondly, gratitude for our water? When we turn on our tap and we have it come out to us cheaper than gasoline, and we don't need gasoline to live. Well, okay, you know what I mean. We take it for granted. We should not. We're blessed with the Mission Creek Aquifer to have some of the best pristine water in the nation, in the world, and I have never drank so much water in my life as we moved here. Another thing I'd like you to ponder. We've kind of joked at different times how quickly they were able to build things and that they got them done. What are we not doing today that will impact our future as a community, as a region, as a county, as a state? And I realize that there's all kinds of pressures from various, environmental groups, from big business and big money, and all these things. I'm just asking and floating the question, what are we not doing today? When they built the tunnels of the aquifer, they were visionaries. And we just sort of go, yeah, well, okay. No, we wouldn't be here without the hidden water running through those tunnels. Coachella wouldn't have grown. We wouldn't have had people go to Moore Park. Coffee wouldn't have met Cabot. On and on. And what are we doing today that will impact our future? These are big 50,000-foot questions that I just want us as good humans, thoughtful humans, to consider. And so, my friends, join the Historical Society. It helps us preserve our documents. Thank you.
My goodness, was that something else or what? All of us, even some of us have been here. I came to the desert in 1969 and my wife came through. And I didn't remember some of that stuff. It's wonderful. And of course I saw John Furby in the baths. He looked great. Very impressive. Hey, look, thank you so very much. Let me get my notes, because I have to tell you when our next food supper is. What did I do with that sheet?
Third Thursday in January.
Third Thursday in January. Fourth Thursday in January. Okay. And we hope you'll all make an effort to be here. We'd love to have you. Those of you that have badges, please drop them off at the table as you leave. And if you happen to have any desserts out there, I'm going to find them, you take them. And then, of course, the book. Yes?
The people that join now,
Cool.
their dues are paid clear through 2014.
Oh. Holy Join us. That says if you join tonight, it's good for all of the rest of this year and all of 2014.
What a bargain.
Such a deal. Thank you all very, very much. And again, Jeff, outstanding. Thank you very much. Thank you all.